Nothing contained in this podcast should be considered a substitute for professional medical advice. This content does not represent our respective employers and is purely the opinion of the podcast hosts. We are not your personal medical providers. Sorry, friends. So, if you have concerns or seeking a diagnosis or treatment, please seek individual advice from a healthcare provider in your area. We are not liable for any risks associated with acting upon the information contained in this podcast. This is intended for educational and entertainment purposes only, so enjoy the ride.
Please drink responsibly and in moderation. Before drinking, please be sure to be of the legal drinking age for your country. We do not encourage the misuse of alcohol.
Welcome to Medical Media Mixer, the perfect cocktail. I'm Nicole Peniston, psychologist.
And I'm Tara Prisco, physician assistant. All right. How's it going?
It's going. I'm very overwhelmed. I had a very long day. It ran late, and I have a bunch of work that I wanted to do tonight because tomorrow we have a retreat at work, which sounds fun, and it will be great. But Fridays are my work from home day, so now I'm losing like 8 hours of report writing time. So, yes. But hopefully it will be worth it.
Yeah, I mean, this week was crazy too because I was off last week, and so you come back to a pile of work. Mm-hmm. So I logged on my computer Sunday night and went through messages and labs and things just to walk in the door Monday, and I saw 24 patients Monday, 20 patients Tuesday. Mm-hmm. It was just busy. So taking off sometimes or having a day off even can mess you up in the future.
It really can. And then Deb told me that you posted something on Facebook. But then I looked and I couldn't find it. So either she got the wrong person or she's making it up. But she said that you posted something about going to the Blue Cross Stadium tomorrow for a day.
That exists. Maybe
I know it exists, but I didn't see you.
You just triangulated my town, though.
Sorry. No, I just said it was a day at the Blue Cross Stadium.
But they do a thing, and probably when it came out a while ago, I hit interested.
Oh, okay. That makes sense.
And then it ended up falling on a day when we had something else.
Okay. Well, no, I was just saying it because after our work retreat, my workplace, we're going to the Blue Cross Stadium tomorrow night. So I was like, are you going to be there? And I didn't even know it.
No, you know what it is? No, I can't go. But yeah, there was, like I said, one of those things. Our school does it and our town does it where they have
nice.
It's all people from our school.
Yeah, I did see it advertised, but I'm like, I don't see you associated with this in any way. So I don't know how she got that. And she doesn't know where you live. So I don't know
but
how
I probably
she was making that connection.
It was probably, how it shows you events on Facebook and then you could get interested or going, and I'll sometimes hit interested to keep it in my mind and then it doesn't work out and whatever. So it probably, what's interesting is that it went to her feed. That's strange that she it was suggested for her.
Well, she's also very nosy. She always likes to know what people are doing, where they're going, what they're interested in. So it could have been that.
She commented.
But yes, I will be there tomorrow night.
Okay, Blue Claws. She commented on our TikTok about the near-death experience and saying it sounded calm and soothing or something.
Yeah, Deb likes to make comments. I don't think she always knows how. And then it's funny because you have the TikTok login for the podcast, so I can't see the comments. And she's like, I keep commenting and you don't keep responding. I'm like, because it's not me, mother.
I mean, you can log in.
Page.
You have the login information. But
I know, but she thinks it's my personal page and I see it and respond. And I'm like, girl, no. Also, Deb being her drinks on Insta, she caught herself a man on there. Some lovely little man keeps sending multiple messages in Spanish. I know that one of them said que linda. So I was like, okay, he thinks you're pretty. But somebody is very into Deb in her pictures.
All right.
But Deb no habla español. So she's going to have to learn.
Communication problem.
Yeah. They can communicate with the love in their hearts.
Is that it? Or Google Translate?
Either one. Isn't it the same thing?
Oh my
So I guess I should get into it, huh?
Sure.
Okay, so today my drink is called the Lithium Motherf'er. I don't know if that's how you pronounce it, but that's how I'm going to pronounce it.
Yeah, I like your inflection.
My inflection. I was channeling Samuel L. Jackson on that one.
Okay, I see it.
So my drink, very, very basic, the basicest. It is Jack Daniel's Tennessee whiskey and orange soda.
And so I did purple drink, you got orange drink.
Orange drink. The ingredients guide, though, it's a little odd because it says 1/4 of an ounce of Jack Daniel's whiskey. That's less than a tablespoon.
Okay.
I was like, girl.
That's a weak drink there.
Yeah. So I put in a tablespoon, and then it says 6 ounces of orange soda, which was a lot. So I was like, okay, that'll be fine. I'm not trying to get drunk. I got work to do tonight, but like 1/4 of an ounce.
That's strange.
Yeah, that's not a whole lot. But that's what's in my drink. Super easy to make, super affordable for those drinking on a budget. So there you go.
True.
Yeah. Just buy yourself the little nip of Jack, and you don't even need to use the whole thing.
Yeah. And like a 20 ounce of orange soda.
Yeah. And yeah, exactly. And you're good to go.
You know?
Yeah. Go to the bodega, pick up both, and you're good to go. So that means, what do you think I'm going to talk about today? With a name like Lithium Motherf'er, I'm going to talk about lithium. Yes. So this was inspired by actually one of my favorite songs of Evanescence is called Lithium. And then when I was like, oh, I should like look that up and what inspired that song. And then in my searches, I found that there were several other lithium related songs, but I only chose 2 to talk about today. So the first one is, as I just said, Lithium by Evanescence. So for you little tiny kids out there listening, Evanescence used to be, back in the day when we were young, they were I guess kind of a rock. It says on Wikipedia, it says they were a rock band. I don't know if I would necessarily, they were a little poppy for a little bit, but I feel like it's more goth.
Yeah, it's like a goth, but there's an electric component sort of.
And also like an alt sound too.
Yeah, I don't know.
We're not going to put them in the rock box. We're going to let them expand and live wherever they wish to live.
Exactly.
But Evanescence was a pretty big band for a very short amount of time. And so they got famous from a particular song that was on the soundtrack of a movie that also didn't end up doing very well. But they were on the soundtrack for Elektra. Was that it? That song, I don't want to sing it. That big popular song that was on the radio.
You can sing, I can't sing. I have it in my head.
Okay. So they had a song that was on an album for a superhero movie. And so that was one of like their big breakouts. But I do know that they had quite a following before that. That was just kind of how they made it more into the mainstream media. And so Lithium is on their album called The Open Door, which was, I believe, their 4th album. So they got kind of famous. I think it was their 2nd album was where they really hit it big. So this was a little bit later. And it was released on, this single for Lithium was released on December 4th, 2006. Oh, I'm sorry. It was the album's 2nd single from that album. This song was the album's 2nd single from The Open Door. It was written by singer and pianist Amy Lee and produced by Dave Fortman. Amy originally wrote it for guitar when she was 16 years old, but then reworked it for the piano because a lot of their songs are heavily like piano based. They have a lot of like string instruments and orchestras in their music. And it is essentially a power ballad about the uncertainty between the feelings of sorrow and happiness, kind of that back and forth. And so lithium, for those who don't know, is a drug that's often used for bipolar disorder. And so that would be that back and forth between those 2 extremes. So the single entered the top 40s in multiple countries, and it spent several weeks charting. And then in the video, which I don't believe I've seen, takes place in a dark and snowy forest. And Amy, the lead singer and the only girl in the band, so of course, you know, a la No Doubt, she's the star.
Right.
I mean, we do love Gwen, but that's a separate issue. So she is sinking into a lake of black water in the song as she sings. And it's an alternate version of the song was on their 4th studio album called Synthesis, which came out in 2017. And they actually released another album, I want to say in 2021 or 2022, but it was just a reimagining of a lot of their old popular songs. So they kind of redid them. So, like I said, she had originally composed the song when she was 16, and when she was writing the album, she was using the word lithium as a metaphor for numbness in herself, but adding that she's known people who've taken the medication and seen the side effects. And so that is very true to what I've heard from a lot of people who have taken lithium, is that when they're taking it for bipolar, sometimes they feel almost too numbed. It's managing the manic symptoms of bipolar disorder, but sometimes it's then making them too low and they lose their creativity or their interest in life. And it's not a full depression, but they're definitely feeling like they're not feeling anything. And that's why a lot of people do not stick with their lithium medication, because they feel that it numbs them, or they feel like they're all better now, they don't need it anymore. And we'll get into the medication in a little bit. So her inspiration for the song was feeling that she was in love with her sorrow. And then in an interview, she said, I get into these moods where I write music. It's not so much about being depressed. It's just the strange low that I ride. But at the time, I want to be free and break through and be happy. I think that was kind of me getting ready to play and saying, that's it, drop the ball and just change and move on. The song is about wanting to break free from the cycles of being stuck in negative situations.
It's very goth, though. Like her
is very goth.
Background of like why she likes it. Being in love with your sorrow. That's like the most goth girl thing.
And
ever.
I mean, like the word that's like screaming in my head is like emo, like
emo.
hardcore
This is before emo was a thing.
This was after emo, technically. Emo was like late 90s. This was in the 2000s. So yeah.
I can't keep up with all these
our
classifications.
post-emo. But
right.
And then, so as I said, kind of the history of it, the music video came out in November of 2006, and it peaked at number 4 on Total Request Live's countdown. Remember Total Request Live?
TLR. Did you know I was on that?
I think I did know that.
So yeah, they were at the Jersey Shore for their Shore House, and MTV used to do that. They used to go to like a place, and I and my boyfriend from high school, I think we were in college at this point, we were sitting on the beach in the area that they were, and they came around and they asked you to say whatever one of the songs that was going to be in the top 10 videos. Right. What song do you want to hear? What's your favorite song right now? And it was The Boy Is Mine. Which, you remember that one? That was huge.
Of course. Well, I was going to say, I got to do the same thing because MTV was at the Jersey Shore quite often, and as were we, just because that's the shore that we go to. But when I was on it, my song that I got to talk about was Aaliyah's Are You That Somebody?
Oh, nice. I like it. Yeah. So that was my little claim to fame. And my friends who lived like out of state Michigan were like, wait, we think we just saw you on TV. I'm like, yeah, it was me.
Yeah. So another song, also entitled Lithium, was by the American rock band Nirvana. So again, for all of you young heads out there, Nirvana was the king. The band's Nirvana and their lead singer, Kurt Cobain, were like the king of like the grunge scene in Seattle in the 90s. And so I don't think Lithium was as big of their hits as some of their other songs, but it was definitely like, it got radio play. It was definitely out there.
Yeah.
But it was on their third album. It was a third single from their album Nevermind, which was a very popular album for them.
And that was really just for our little music history. That is the invention of alternative, not what you guys call alternative now, but of the bridge from leaving the 80s and early 90s hair bands and coming into this sort of darker, grungier version of rock. So
right. So it was from the album Nevermind, which was one of their most popular albums, but it only peaked at number 64 on the US Billboard Hot 100. So it wasn't one of their more popular songs. So the song was written in 1990, so quite, it was about 9 years before they got popular. Or no, they got popular in 92. So it was 2 years before they got popular. Sorry, I was looking at a different.
He was gone by like 96, 95.
Yeah, no, there was another date that I was looking at. And so I just lost my spot. Where was I? Where did I go? Where am I? Help me. Help me. I'm stuck in a box.
I feel like that's something you've said before.
No, I've said I'm in a nutshell. Help me. I'm stuck in a nutshell. Okay, so here we go. The song was added to Nirvana's set list soon after it was written, and I said it was written in 1990. It was over a year before the release of the album. So they were already playing it live before it made it to an album. And do you know who Kim Thahill is?
I don't think so.
That is the guitarist of Soundgarden.
Okay.
Yes. So he recalled hearing it for the first time at one of Nirvana's shows and said, when I heard Lithium, it stuck in my mind. Ben, our bass player, came up to me and said, that's a hit. That's a top 40 hit right there. Unfortunately, it was not. But either way, Nirvana was definitely going places, and they were, catching on to that soon.
And Soundgarden was another huge one. Black Hole
Soundgarden.
I can picture that music video, right? With the lipstick and
the eyes going giant.
Yeah.
That was a great song and a great album. And that song still tracks. It's still a banger. I don't know if the kids would call it a banger, but I do. So for those of you who are not familiar with Nirvana, I'm going to name some names that maybe are familiar to you. So the song was then being recorded for the album, and Dave Grohl was the new drummer to the band. Yes, he did go elsewhere after Nirvana. It's a whole story that y'all are too young to know. For those of you who are not, y'all know the story. But anyway.
Listen to his audiobook. It's interesting to hear from his perspective. So
Yes.
yeah.
So Lithium was performed live in 1992 on the MTV Music Video Awards on September 9th in Los Angeles. And Kurt Cobain had wanted to play the unreleased song Rape Me instead, but was met with resistance from MTV, obviously because of the title and the content of that song. And so they played this as well. And they also played Smells Like Teen Spirit, which was one of their larger hits.
So my kids call that song the avocado song because they think he's saying
I know exactly
avocado, avocado.
I'm a hater. Sorry. I said I wasn't going to sing, damn it. And then Kurt Cobain explained in his 1993 Nirvana biography, Come As You Are, the story of Nirvana, that instead of bowing out and keeping our dignity, we decided to get effed in the ass because of that debate over what songs were okay for TV play, what songs were not. The final live version of Lithium was at Nirvana's very last show on March 1st, 1994. For those of you who don't know, it was their last show because Kurt Cobain committed suicide shortly thereafter, or there's a conspiracy that he did not and that he was murdered. We'll have to talk about that on a different episode.
Okay.
You don't know about that conspiracy?
I didn't know. I mean, I kind of just thought, I just believed everything. I don't know.
Yeah. So, lyrics. According to Cobain, Lithium was one of those songs I actually did finish while trying to write it instead of taking pieces of my poetry and other things. So he was known for always writing poetry over the years and then compiling little bits of it together to make a song. And so this was one of those songs that he actually intentionally wrote. He said that the song was an update on the Marxist description of religion as an opiate for the masses. So he's moving more away from the literal interpretation of lithium and stabilizing mood and more talking about feeding the masses and making people high or making people excited and then coming down. So definitely a different interpretation of lithium for his song. And then he explained, in the song, a guy's lost his girl and his friends, and he's brooding. He's decided to find God before he kills himself. It's hard for me to understand the need for a vice like religion, but I can appreciate it too. People need vices. And so in the song, this person is finding religion to save himself from self-destruction, which we know did not necessarily work for our dear Kurt Cobain.
No.
Let's see. I already said where it landed on the charts and the legacy of it. April 10th, 2014, Lithium was performed by surviving Nirvana members Dave Grohl, I always forget his first name, Novoselic, and Pat Smear, with lead vocals by St. Vincent. If you know, she is a rock singer as well. So she stood in for Kurt Cobain and sang on that one. It's Lithium has also been used as the goal song for Seattle's national hockey team, the Seattle Kraken, ever since their inaugural season. So they are, I mean, it's an interesting song to pick, but I guess it's a banger. So they like it.
Just like probably guitar strums or some sort of
probably like gears you up, get you moving.
Right.
So lithium, as I said before, it is a medication commonly used for the treatment of psychiatric disorders, primarily bipolar disorder or major depressive disorder. It's taken orally by mouth. It can be called lithium compounds, lithium salts, or just lithium. It also has brand names of Escalith, Escalith CR, or Lithobid. Yeah, Lithobid. And it typically treats the mania part of bipolar, as I was talking about before. So bipolar disorder is when someone has very high highs and very low lows. And then there's two types of bipolar. Bipolar 1 is exactly what I just said. That often leads to hospitalization or more intensive problems. Bipolar 2 is when someone has more of a hypomanic state. So they have highs, but they're not now being reckless or doing things that are dangerous, but they're still in a state where it's throwing them off, impacting their ability to work, to take care of themselves and things like that. So that differentiates bipolar 1 from bipolar 2. And that's a very brief description of bipolar because today I'm focusing more on the medication. So interestingly, it's not known exactly how lithium works to stabilize a person's mood, but it does act on the central nervous system. So basically, it's helping you have more control over your emotions and helps you cope better with your daily stressors. But as far as what lithium is doing to directly affect the mood, we're not sure. And I feel like, unfortunately, that's how a lot of psych medications are. Like, we know it works.
Right. There's a lot of meds in general that sometimes older meds that they don't know the exact mechanism of action. And I think they sort of happenstance figured it out. I think nowadays things are more targeted, but older meds for sure.
Yeah. And so lithium, it's typically not prescribed to children younger than the age of 12, but children 7 years old and up, it has been FDA approved. It's just not the typical choice unless, somebody's in a really difficult situation. And then there hasn't been a whole lot of studies on the geriatric population with lithium, which is concerning to me because lots of people had taken that for decades and are now in the geriatric population. So we should have been checking that stuff out.
Yep.
There's no adequate studies about how it impacts breastfeeding, but the potential benefits, you want to weigh the benefits and the risk for the individual person. And then drug interactions, it can have some difficulties. You can have some difficulties if you're taking it with phenlazine. Do you know what the side effect is? It doesn't tell me.
No, it's probably having to do with being processed through the same part of, your liver or whatever, one of those.
Yeah, so the metabolization of
the metabolism.
It, right?
Yeah, often, that can make one of the drugs more toxic because they're competing for a certain enzyme to metabolize it.
Yeah. And then there's a very long list, I'm not going to go through all of them, about medications that are not recommended to be taking with it. But in certain cases, if you're really struggling with managing your bipolar, you can take it with other medications. But lithium itself can become toxic very quickly. And so I'm assuming that's why we don't want to be putting it then with other medications that are also going to metabolize in your system and increase the toxicity and the risks for that.
Right. That's why, there are so many newer drugs, because it's very cumbersome for something like that interacts with so many things and requires frequent blood tests and monitoring. So notoriously, a patient who does have something like bipolar disorder might not be compliant with their follow-ups, might not be taking their drug regularly, and then they have very specific levels you want their lithium level in between. And so that can be very tricky. So I think it's fallen out of favor significantly in the past now that there's so much more available.
Yes. And typically when I'm seeing it on the outpatient setting, it's someone who's tried multiple other medications. They haven't been effective. So then they go to that. I wouldn't say it's the last line of treatment for bipolar, but it's definitely not the first line of treatment.
Right. I think it
especially
was
these days.
Right. Historically, it was the first line, but I think now it's fallen down dramatically.
And then some of the side effects of lithium toxicity, or just side effects of taking the medication. The common side effects are increased urination, shakiness in your hands, and increased thirst. And the more serious side effects are hypothyroidism, diabetes insipidus, and then the toxicity that we were just talking about. And that's why that blood level monitoring is recommended, because if the levels become too high, you start to have symptoms such as diarrhea, vomiting, poor coordination, sleepiness, and tinnitus, or tinnitus, as some people call it.
Right.
Which is ringing in the ears.
The hypothyroidism is a very big one. And there are like one or two other drugs out there that can do that. But that's something that as a provider, you need to know. You need to check their thyroid levels regularly because it can happen.
Right. And then, so I'm looking at two different sources here. And then this other source is saying that it should not be used during pregnancy, especially not during the first trimester. But then the other one, it said the risks outweigh the benefits with both pregnancy and breastfeeding. So again, I think if you are expecting or trying to get pregnant, talk with your provider about your lithium as soon as possible, so we can prevent any potential birth defects. And because lithium is a tetragenic, do you want to tell the class what that means?
So essentially that's anything that can cause pregnancy to fail, essentially.
Yes.
So the problem with the classification of drugs in pregnancy and breastfeeding is that they aren't done in the studies, and most of it is retroactive, people using it off label because they had no other choice, and then going back retrospectively and looking at the outcomes of those, because it's not ethical to test it on pregnancy and lactation.
Right.
But you kind of need to know, so it's a very strange place to be.
Yeah. And then I think not everyone is necessarily aware of when they first get pregnant or necessarily planning to. And so I think there's some dangers with that, because it's especially dangerous in that first trimester. So if you don't even know, and then now you've got a problem. Exactly. I think the other thing too, which this is not meant to be a judgmental comment, it's just factual. People with bipolar disorder often are very impulsive and very risk-seeking. And so being hypersexual is something that can happen. And so it does leave open that possibility for an unexpected pregnancy. So if you're not, managing your medication or managing your health, it's definitely a risk that is out there.
Absolutely.
So originally in the 19th century, lithium was used for people who had gout, epilepsy, cancer, and then it didn't really start being used for mental health until the 1870s and onwards. So early 1800s, it was used for other things. Lithium carbonate is typically what we're seeing with people. And I believe, because isn't that like more of like a diluted version?
It's probably just a more stable version. Sometimes they link another molecule on there to make it more stable. I don't know the exact pharmacology.
And then in the US in 1970, that's when it was approved for use for bipolar disorder, which is really the primary use in the US. But occasionally you might see someone with, as I said before, major depression, schizophrenia, impulse control disorders, or some certain psychiatric disorders in children. So this is a little bit of an offshoot, but most prescribers are not going to be recommending something as heavy as lithium for children. And if they are, that means this child is having severe behavioral disruptions, that's, academic disruptions, health and safety disruptions. So if they're choosing that, it means that there's not a whole lot of other options. And so in that case, maybe this is the best choice for that child. But in general, it's not something that most kids are going to be put on at any time, hopefully. So as I said, lithium is primarily used as a maintenance drug for the treatment of bipolar, which means that's something that you have to take consistently all the time. It's not like a one-time thing. It's superior to the placebo for acute depression, but atypical antipsychotics are considered more effective in treating the depressive episodes of bipolar. So really, the lithium is treating more of the mania, as I was saying before. So a lot of times you're going to need to take this with someone else, with something else, which is concerning because there are so many interactions, as I said before. Another interesting counterintuitive thing to be taking when you're taking lithium is caffeine. So I bet there's a lot of people out there who don't even know that, or they're just like, I can have some coffee, I can drink a couple sodas, I can chug a Red Bull and I'll be fine. And that's not really the case. And then lithium, if you're taking it both by itself or with other medications, can cause a lot of other issues, as we were talking about: muscle weakness, hyponatremia.
Hyponatremia? Low sodium.
Hyponatremia.
Yes.
So low sodium in the blood, heart or blood vessel disease, severe dehydration, sweating, kidney disease, infection, Brugada syndrome.
That is a heart condition, your heart rhythm.
It is. Yes. Yeah. It can, in rare cases, cause encephalopathic syndrome, which is a brain disease, causing your brain to swell. Weakened physical condition. So if you already have difficulty with balance, this would be more the elderly population. If you have difficulties with balance or with stability, you definitely want to be careful if you're taking this. And then it can cause other thyroid problems or nervous system problems, because as I said, that's what it is affecting, is your nervous system. So I'm not going to go a whole bunch into dosage because I'm not a prescriber, but there are very specific levels that are considered clinically appropriate levels. And then a lot of times people are going to work up to that clinical level. And then once they're stabilized, stay there. And then typically, if you need to go off of the medication, you're going to wean off of it. It's not something that you're going to stop immediately because it is metabolized in your body. And then that can cause different types of side effects. I'm not going to read. There's another list of side effects that literally has like 100 things on it. I ain't reading that to you guys. You guys can look that up. So as we said before, used for bipolar disorder, sometimes for schizophrenia or major depressive disorder. So if someone is on an SSRI, a selective serotonin reuptake inhibitor, they should discontinue that before taking lithium. And again, that's because of those interactions that can cause a lot of problems. And we see that a lot with a lot of those mental health medications, SSRIs, NSAIDs, things like that. You need to be really careful about those interactions because it can cause problems for people. There's also
often the SSRIs are not used in bipolar anyway, because often they can be very activating. So
can cause a cyclical disorder.
Right. There's one that I think has an indication, I think Prozac specifically, I'm pretty sure is the one that has the indication in combination with an antipsychotic, but alone or with other things, they can actually do more harm than good in somebody with bipolar.
Yeah. And then they're talking about how lithium can use to augment other medications. They said those are typically for some other antipsychotics that are used for bipolar, or anti-epileptic drugs used for both psychiatric or epileptic cases, such as lamotrigine or topiramate. And so lithium can be used safely with those drugs, but typically it's used as a monotherapy. So you're just taking that. It's widely believed that lithium can help prevent suicide in manic patients. And so that's really important, because we do know that some of those medications can increase your suicidal ideation. Yes. So this is one of those safer ones. And then there's been some studies about Alzheimer's disease. So this is talking about more of that geriatric population that we were talking about. And it looks like they're still looking at it. As of 2009, they're looking at Alzheimer's patients taking a low dose of lithium daily for 3 months, and that it resulted in slowed cognitive decline. So there's some studies going on there, but I think because of those other side effects, they're probably being very cautious about
Right. It's just so risky in them.
Yeah. And then, as we talked about before, getting regular serum level tests, that's the monitoring for toxicity in your system. You want to make sure that you're doing that if you are on it. And then there's been studies testing prophylactic use of lithium in cluster headaches, migraine attacks, and hypnic headache, which I don't know about hypnic headache. Do you know that?
Yeah. I do not.
Yeah, interesting. Wait, I'm going to tell you what it is, since we don't know. They are benign primary headaches that affect the elderly with an age of onset of 63.
Yeah. Don't know. Never heard of it.
Yeah, that's the first time ever hearing about it. I'm not a headache specialist, though, so I'm putting that out there.
Headache sufferer, not specialist.
I'm a migraine, but not a specialist. Yes, I have migraines, but yeah, that's all I know.
I have migraines not frequently and cluster headaches. Thank God that only comes once or twice every 2 years, but still bad.
So yeah, it says when I looked up the hypnic headaches, it specifically states that lithium carbonate is at bedtime is an effective treatment for those. And then for those who cannot tolerate lithium, there's a few other options, including melatonin, which I'm like, hey, isn't melatonin safer to try first? But
but it's over the counter, so it's not regulated dose wise. That's probably
true. But then it also says that it had also been shown that 1 to 2 cups of coffee or 100 to 200 milligrams of caffeine before bed can also prevent headaches. So do we want to jump straight to the lithium? I'm thinking probably not, to be safe about that. So I think, that's all I've got about lithium.
Yeah. I mean, it's something that, we definitely do not like. I think there was a time period you'd come across it on a patient's med list a lot more frequently than we do now. So I think it's phased out. But like you said, there are probably very specific patient types that, maybe don't tolerate other drugs or it hasn't worked for them that it's still in use for.
I just found something that you're going to lose your mind over.
Oh, I'm scared.
Because it connects a little bit to our scissor that we just talked about. 7-Up. As with cocaine in original Coca-Cola, lithium was widely marketed as one of several patent medicine products popular in the late 19th and 20th centuries, and it was included in 7-Up.
Wow. Yes. 7-Up with lithium. So
and there was a thing called Lithia water, which was just lithium. And then at one point, they marketed it as a 7-Up lithinated lemon soda. But that was launched 2 weeks before the Wall Street crash in 1929. Okay. So I don't know, maybe it helped stabilize some people's moods after all that stress or not.
Maybe. I mean, that was the back in the day, patent medications, patent medicines, as they called them, where you could just kind of make up your own little brew and sell it as anything.
Yeah. And it says all references to lithium in 7-Up were removed in 1937 because at that point they were no longer using it to make the soda.
That's still not
fun fact. I feel like everybody knows about cocaine and Coca-Cola, but who knew about lithium and 7-Up?
Did not
Interesting.
know.
Yeah. And then, like I said, they're doing some research on Alzheimer's, also research with ALS patients about lithium. So that's pretty cool. They're looking at other uses for that. I do, though, have a feeling like given the upkeep that you need to take it, I don't know if those are necessarily the best populations to be using it with.
I guess ALS, if you have no other choices at this point, try things. I mean, there's really nothing right now for that.
That's true. Well, and I would assume with ALS, you're having pretty regular doctor's appointments anyway. So,
exactly.
Yeah, it's not necessarily going to change having to go get your levels checked.
Exactly.
So that's all I've got for lithium today, guys. That was pretty short.
All right. We're keeping it light. Lithium.
No, we're keeping it drunk. We're keeping it toxic.
Lithium Motherf'er.
Lithium Motherf'er. We're keeping it toxic today. We had codeine and now we have lithium. I didn't even realize that we did 2 drugs back to back.
Yeah, I didn't think about it either. That works.
It worked out. It all works out in the end.
It's a theme. And then next episode, we will be having a special guest. So
yes, I'm super excited for this. Yeah.
You have to go watch the episode.
I will.
Okay. I linked it in the show stuff.
Yes.
All right. So thank you for listening to Medical Media Mixer.
The perfect cocktail. Cheers.
Cheers.
Your drink's empty.
I know. I kept the same one.
Boo, motherfucker. Thanks for tuning in to this episode of the Medical Media Mixer podcast. If you enjoyed the conversation, don't forget to subscribe, rate, and review us on your favorite podcast platform. Your support helps others find the show. Want to keep the conversation going? Follow us on social media. We're at Medical Media Mixer Podcast on Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, YouTube, and on Pinterest, the Medical Media Mixer board.
If you'd like to support the show and help us grow, check us out on Patreon. Patreon.com/Medical Media Mixer Podcast. And on Buy Me a Coffee, buymeacoffee.com/Medical Media Mixer Podcast. If you have a topic idea, feedback, or just want to say hi, send us an email at medicalmediamixer@gmail.com. You can also stream all of our episodes and find more info on our website, medicalmediamixer.podbean.com. We're available on all major podcast platforms, so no matter where you listen, we're there. Thanks again for listening, and until next time, keep mixing medicine and media.